20, 30 years ago, it was, automated systems are going to replace humans. But that's never going to happen because of some of the things you just said. As there's always going to have to be either human oversight on what's happening, or there's a level of complexity, or where a customer doesn't want to be met with automation. That's going to require the need for a human. So I think some of the fear and maybe the responsibility around automation or AI replacing humans, I don't think that's ever going to happen. There's always going to be a need for both. It's just what's the right balance, and we may see it swing. Sometimes you see it swing more to automation, and something happens and it swings back more to a human. I think we're always going to see that pendulum in this new world.
All right, welcome back to No Hold Time. I think this is the 10th time we've met.
Yes.
So it's okay.
Yeah, double digits. Hey, we made it double digits.
Double digits. Eric, myself, Brian Bremer, David Ariza, nice to have you all back. I think I picked the topic last time.
You did.
Eric, how about you? What should we discuss today?
So we've talked quite a bit about artificial intelligence and AI, but we also know that when AI is talked about in the news right now, there's a lot of fear. And not just in the news, organizations we talk to, nobody quite knows what it is. So let's talk about ethics in artificial intelligence.
Ooh, okay.
So that's not too heavy, right?
It's a little heavy,
deep,
but I
a little
like
deep.
it.
Okay.
And you guys ethical professors? Part-time?
No.
All right, we'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
No, but I did
No.
say
After this podcast, we'll
Right.
So, that brings up a lot of ideas
I know.
and topics.
We can go all over the place on this one.
Well, do you want to start? Where's your head go with it?
Yeah, well, I think where it goes to me is how we secure transactions, or how we identify customers in a way that makes our customers feel like they are talking to the people that they believe they're talking to. And that's something that customers have asked me about a lot. So thanks for throwing it to me, because it's topical for me. But customers in financial verticals asking, how can you help us identify people? You've talked about gift card, and people in gift card companies have come to me asking, how can we secure? Here's what's happening. One, either people are calling and finding out what the gift card number is and then using that, and that affects customers in many different ways. One, their customers are upset because they bought a gift card and it doesn't work. Two, the way fraudsters get into that is they're just pounding the IVR, trying to figure out. So increased volume, which means increased costs. And then another thing is that, let's just say they did get a gift card and now they've bought a shirt from whatever company that is. It puts our customer's brand in a bad light, right? So they're affected probably more than 3 ways, but those are the ways that are commonly, our customers are talking to me that affect their customers. So they've tasked me, our customers have tasked me with trying to help them. And we have some amazing partners that can help us identify, one is if the call is being spoofed, right? So spoofed, I don't know if we've put that in the dictionary.
Let's define it, yeah.
Is I'm calling you from a number, but I'm telling you that I'm calling from a different number, which could be Eric's number, right? So you think Eric's calling you, but David's calling you. And so we have a way of finding out if this is really that specific number calling you. The way they do it is they call that number and find out all within milliseconds, right? Like, you tell me that this number is calling you, I call it to make sure that that number is actually calling.
Magic.
A lot of magic, right? That happens within milliseconds.
Well, yeah,
right?
you think about just the phone calls you get every day, and it looks like someone's calling you from your your local area, and it's a fraudster. It's somebody who's spoofing a number to give credibility that there's somebody that you should talk to.
Right. So that's happening after the call is answered, but even before that, we have the ability to tell if a call is coming from an area that is known to be housed prevalent,
high risk.
High fraud, right? And so we have the ability to say this call is 75% likely a fraudulent call. And so we work with customers to find out how do we approach this call. Do we send it to an agent who is expecting a highly likely a fraud call, or do we just hang up on them? So our customers have done it in a few different ways, but I get really excited because, like you mentioned at the beginning, both of you guys, that AI is getting smarter and we're enabling more AI, and it has some of our customers concerned. But on the equally, the technology is getting smarter in identifying potential bad actors, right? And so it's not just scary, it's also really cool because we are able to counter new ways of fraudulent calls and fraudulent activity. And so I'm excited about that because I work with a lot of customers in financial industries, verticals, and healthcare, which are two really important. And the data being transferred is really important. So I get excited when I hear about new things. And if you can find a way to predict that this call is fraudulent before it's even answered, that makes our customers feel better about then going about their normal identification and verification steps, that we've added an additional security blanket before the calls even started.
Yeah, and what's interesting too, we talk ethical AI, it's also responsible AI. And the responsibility in that scenario is, if I know that David's calling, David's number is tied to this particular gift card, or there's some connection there, and I've already identified that as low risk up front, I may not have to put David through the paces of identifying who he is to use his gift card. Versus, I'm not quite certain, so I'm going to make sure my customer, David, doesn't get some fraudulent activity on this gift card, and I'm going to put this person through the paces. Or if I really know it's a fraudster, I'm sending them to some specialty agent, or I'm blocking them altogether. So the responsibility of how you're using that information.
So I think that helps in more than two ways, but the two ways that it helps that I really appreciate is if we identify in a secure manner that the call is not fraudulent before, one, your actual IVR, IVA time has condensed, so you as a company hosting an IVA are paying less minutes, so your call is shorter. And then as a consumer, your customers have a better experience because as we've talked about, it's an underlying thing. We feel that we know who they are, and we've told you this is probably not fraud. The call is shorter, then I have a better customer experience.
Yeah,
so those are two benefits of securely IDing before and during a call.
Ethics is such a broad topic, and especially in AI is even broader. Like the term AI could be anything, like machine learning. You were talking about AI trying to do fraud and competing against fraud. I heard there's a good story in the world of Gen AI when it first started about some young lawyers got burnt out, had a boatload of work to do, and took to GPT or one of the, I don't want to put them out there, but one of the generative AI solutions that are out there, and had their entire legal brief written by the AI. Gave it the topic, the pieces it wanted, whatever. The lawyer took it to the court, or I'm bailing on this, but it had a bunch of made up, incorrect lawsuits it referred to, like as precedent. The guy got fired. But he's pressured, like all of us, to do a lot of work fast, and you see this great technology and you trust it. I think that alone, yes, it was younger, but probably before it's been iterated on, but that alone scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, we even had a contract come through just in the last couple of weeks where we had to write that one of our tools doesn't use AI, that it wouldn't use AI because this bank was so nervous and unset on what they were going to do with their AI principles, that they wrote a contract that said, you can't use AI in this thing, and if you do, we have the right to do whatever they decide they want to do with it. And I'm hearing that more. Like, I'm hearing the fear of AI, even though we've used AI before, it was called AI for years. I'm hearing the fear of using generative AI and just the AI broad topic in general by lots of enterprises, because there's really not a lot of regulation around it. There was an event we got invited to. I didn't sponsor in it. They invited us as part of being experts in this space. Hint, hint, if you want to invite us, we'll take it. And they had some amazing panelists. AI is now kind of a C-suite title, like CAI is, or SVP of AI or whatever.
Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer.
Chief Technology of AI. There's all kinds of stuff. But they brought the director, I'm going to probably butcher this, someone big in the U.S. Patent Office to talk about this. And they think, the EU, Europe, is going to be kind of the start of where regulation comes, and they'll kind of benefit from all of their research, which, if you guys know law, EU tends to start a lot of things between data. And what he talked about was they're having, at least at the time, a lot of challenges figuring out what can be copywritten or patented or all of that, because think about Gen AI. You put an input in, you could say, I want this code written with this tone and use these compliance things and this business rule, and it can spit out all of this cool application, website, whatever. But is that copyrightable by a company because some other thing did it, output it for you? There's just a lot of ethics in that space, right? I think, A, it was your idea to put the inputs in and use the systems you have around you, but B, you didn't really write it.
Someone else did all the work.
Someone did the work.
You had 5 different companies out there that probably did the initial work that you just had it all pulled together.
The U.S. public, as much as these large language models are becoming grown, like Facebook and Meta have their own based on what we tell all of their search engines. Like, we might have built it as a thing. True. So I think where I was going is, I think the topic is going to be hard to put a finger on in ethics for a while until regulation comes down. But who's going to be first? Because it is such a, you don't want to be the bad guy and put so much regulation that you make this amazing technology so restricted. But you also don't want to be the bad guy who's okay with bringing fake legal briefs to a court and some guy getting put away for lifetime for stuff you made up. Like there's so much out there anymore.
It is. In my personal life, I'm around a lot of folks that are in the medical field. They're physicians, and they know what I do and ask about it. And I can tell they're trying to figure out how to use this responsibly in their profession. And it may be dipping their toes into, well, I have a presentation, so I may use it to help, because can it help take this and build me a PowerPoint because I'm presenting at this conference? Okay, that feels okay because it's not, interacting with patients, it's interacting with the medical community. And then the next step is, well, and I wonder if I could produce some content or something that could help my patients with medication adherence, or so they're thinking out loud of how they can use this, but you can sense how nervous they are.
I mean, I know for a fact that there are doctors out there that are putting in very unique symptoms and just to see what this thing produces, to see if they agree with it or not.
Yep.
And I think it's an ethical question. Like, are you better off trusting the doctor who's been practicing medicine forever, Or are you better off trusting the technology who might find the thing you didn't know, or the doctor never heard of, or some specialized, chromosome problem or something? That's the ethics of this.
It is. It's all, quality assurance becomes paramount. If you're going to produce something, you better spot check it for accuracy, unlike what happened with that attorney who just, sent off a bunch of, cases that never existed and didn't, spend any time at all going, does this case even exist or is it true?
Yeah, I also think there's a human element to this too,
It has
which
to be.
is,
Yeah.
You can't, they're going to try, because everyone's going to be squeezed for time, resources, money. There's going to be a time where they say, just put it through AI and move on.
Yep.
But should you? I don't think you should. And we don't. I mean, if in our company, we're saying we use AI for every one of our clients these days, and we make sure that the humans are looking at everything before we change it. Because and I don't know if that's going to change. Even as good as these things get, I don't think it should change.
Well, when it's funny,
That's
it's
my ethical side.
the topics we've had around, do you use automation all the time or not? I mean, even at the most simplistic level of our business of deciding to use automation versus human, taking that on the extreme where it is, the highest form of AI, you're going to have to make decisions. Where do you automate the easy and leave the complex to humans?
Yeah. There's also that same show I went to, they brought in some folks that do, I don't remember if they were like a legal department or some sort of legal entity, right? And they thought that some of the early use cases of Gen AI should be contracting. And simply because if you like us, we have a lot of customers, a lot of clients, a lot of variation, I would say, in contracts between clauses and just different legal philosophies and things. And as a single legal entity in a business, you have to understand the risks you have as a company. And so just writing to a co-pilot or whatever may be out there, do we have this term to worry about? Like, bring that in. And the other thing that she talked a lot about was using it as someone who we provide services is to look at a contract and say, do we have clauses that are putting us at risk, and maybe what should we set ourselves up to negotiate differently on to make this better? And ethically it's fair, but it also gives you an advantage over people. So it's that ethics question of how much do you do this? We're all going to do it. Let's just be honest. We all have squeezes for time and money and things. David, let's talk about oversight. Let's pull on the human thread a little bit. And when you were talking about your solution earlier, what did your client talk to you about when it came to how do you grade fraud high risk, fraud medium risk, and what do you do? So there's a system saying that, but ethically, you still may have a customer who's got a bad cell phone or traveled across the world and is calling in for support. How did you guys navigate, like, what should be done at certain levels of risk, the human element of it all?
Yeah, so let's just go through those paces, right? We do the background work before the call, and then let's just, in your case, maybe they have a bad cell phone, or they're calling from a VoIP phone or something, and they're in an area that has high fraud activity. So then we go back to normal paces where we identify them with like a credit card number or an employee number. On top of that, we have the ability to do voice biometrics, which is really cool. You'll say some sort of phrase and have it on file so that you can take that. And the difference is your agent, if they've gone through steps 1 and 2, and the agent sees, oh, this is maybe yellow, like it's not red, it's not green, then we can instruct those agents to just maybe take a couple of extra precautions, knowing that this person hasn't been identified or verified very well. But the really cool thing is, then in the future, let's just say that person travels a lot and that's normal, right? We could put that on their profile, so the next time an agent, not even that specific agent, speaks with them, they'll still go through normal ID&V procedures, but maybe they're expecting it because that person travels a lot. But we'll still need to make sure that they are, because if you are traveling in areas where fraud activity is more prevalent, then you're also more likely to be compromised, right? So we always need to make sure that we're ID&Ving those people. So it's just understanding and educating your agents to make sure to go through the proper steps, and then layering on top of what you've built before call, during call, and then even after a call.
And you're not trusting the system is always right.
Right.
I think that's the ethical question: is do you trust the system is
No, and like you guys are just talking about,
Yeah.
we need to ensure that the human element is stepping in, especially in those areas where we're noticing that there are anomalies or it's something so important. It goes back to automating the easy, right? To previous conversations we've had, is there's some areas where it's just too risky to automate or not to have human elements that can help ensure that we're doing the right thing by our customers and by their customers, ethically.
So let me pull on the automation piece again. When it comes to we build a lot of virtual agents. They're formerly called IVRs if you've lived in this space, but now it's more of we've talked about it before, but it's answering the phone using an automated system and offering self-service, basically asking natural open questions like, how can I help you today? So Eric, you're a consumer. Would you feel better knowing, let me preface this. The virtual agents, the automations, they're all getting, in the text-to-speech technologies are all getting so good.
Yep.
In fact, I heard one the other day from a competitor that I thought it was a real person. Good for them. Would you feel better as a consumer of these things if we were transparent and told you that we were an automation? Or do you just go into it and say go? Now, this is an ethical question, right?
It is. And honestly,
personal preference.
Personal preference? No, you don't have to let me know. I'm conditioned that if I'm calling or reaching out to an organization, I know 99% of the time it's going to be some sort of automation that's greeting me initially. Yeah. Whether it's I'm calling in or if I'm engaging with a chat bot, I just assume that it's automation, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I didn't want to put you on the spot.
No.
Our company does something specific.
It is.
But personal preference. And,
yeah.
And is that because you've lived in IVRs for your whole life, or do you think it's just the general public so aware of working with these things anymore that we're used to it?
I think it's one, obviously being in the industry, but two, growing up with technology.
Yeah.
I think I'm just comfortable that I know what it does, I know what it can and can't do, so I'm not bothered by it. But we still see companies today that if they're moving more towards automation and they're not as used to it or their customers won't be, they might actually name their automated system.
We have some folks
that do that, and it puts a nice little touch on it. It personalizes the automation or I know we don't like to use bot, but let's just use the word bot.
It's true. Still a bot.
Yeah, it personalizes the bot. So yeah, I think it's a combination of being in the industry, but even more so just growing up with technology, comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I think you have to also look at the folks that are interacting with the brand. And you can't put labels on people, but you have certain, I know Apple really well. I know what their technology does. I expect something when I call them. Yep. I know that my grocery store probably isn't as technology, as advanced yet, things like that. So there are that too. What about, and I'm going to ask a similar question to you, David. Like what if you called an automated machine, or let's even switch the channels. Let's pretend you got a text message from healthcare that said, "Hey, your results are in. Here's what we found. You've got some worries about HIPAA there, but call me back for information." And it was a bot that wrote that. how would you feel? Would you feel like that you didn't get enough? Would you feel like it should have been a human that called you? This is a total personal episode. How would you feel about the ethics in that space?
Yeah, I wouldn't want my results being texted, right? So that in that case,
There's
you
some
said
HIPAA stuff
this is what we've found. I wouldn't want that, but I think that's good because you've.
Let me pull it back then. What if the bot? Sorry, you're right. HIPAA, we shouldn't send that. PHI included. But what if the bot said you, hey, reply back if you'd like me to text you your results, and you replied back a bunch of questions about it later after you saw it. Like, do I need to take my medication differently, this, that, and the other? And you thought it was going to respond to you. Would you rather have a human do that or a bot do that?
Yeah, this is definitely a human touch situation, right? If I'm waiting on results and I'm going to have questions, right? If it's an easy thing, hey, your prescription's ready, or hey, I sent this in, then good to go. But if it's something that I'm going to have questions, I think the way I prefer my healthcare provider would be, hey, results are in, call me when you're ready to talk. That way, I'm avoiding situations where, like, who answers random phone calls anymore, right?
Sales guys.
I never answer the call. It maybe is a little different for me because I have an area code number from where I grew up in South Texas, and I haven't lived there in a long time. A same number I've had since I was a freshman in high school. So when I get a call, a 704 area code, Charlotte, North Carolina, I answer because no one has my number in Charlotte, North Carolina, other than my doctor or my favorite pest guys, like we talked about in episodes before. And so I normally answer it, but if it's not a 704 where a Charlotte is growing so quickly that there is at least one more area code, I never answer the call.
Yeah.
But if I get a text and it says this is, your primary care physician, we have your results, give us a ring, then I'll call. Because one, I know it's them. Two, maybe I'm busy and I wouldn't answer the phone call anyways.
Yeah.
That's how I'd like to approach it. Like, hey, we're ready for you when you're ready.
What I like is if it's like a non-emergency type result situation where now today you'll get a notification from the provider saying, hey, we've made some updates to your results, this, that, and the other. Go here, log into our portal to view those results. Well, I love that.
That's a great way too.
So I think the escalation of my question goes to that then. So let's say it's not a text message. Let's say it's a in-app notification saying, hey, we've got your results. It looks like you should call us or text me back if you have questions. And if you texted back, would you be comfortable talking to an AI bot that could answer those questions for you about your healthcare?
No.
I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to sell one of them some point.
Yeah, not right now.
It depends on when it is. Like, hey, I called because I didn't know if my kid's immunization is due, which one. Hey, I forgot which was the last one. Are they need? Then that's okay, I think. But if it's something more nuanced,
results from a blood test.
Yeah, I think it just varies, right? That's the cool thing is we've talked about meeting your customers where they want to be met, in the manner they want to be met, right? And so some people might be cool doing that. I think it depends. I would probably be okay depending on the topic, what the question is. So having that availability would be nice, or just clicking a button to call them and them to call me.
Well, why don't we kind of start to wrap on like what we all personally think guardrails that we should go down when it comes to this stuff. Then we can kind of talk about that personally. So I'll say this. I think what we talk about a lot of times, like I said, AI's been around forever. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't cool until recently. And the guardrails we've always put around it has been make sure a human being that's trained professionally looks at what happens, the responses that happen, the actions that happen, and ensures that it's doing it right. And I think that guardrail has to remain personally for this thing to even grow. Now, at some point, someone business-wide will say, I got to cut that cost. Yeah. But I just don't think you can ethically to keep this right, because I mean, obviously the guy wrote a bunch of legal briefs, took it to court. If that turned out differently and someone went to jail for that, that's awful. And I think at some point it's going to happen, which is why personally I got to make sure I have humans around it. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, and I'm going to go down one of kind of the passionate areas of this business, which is job displacency, and everybody freaking out that AI is going to replace human beings, and growing up and being in a contact center, being an agent. There's always going to be the need for both. 20, 30 years ago, it was, automated systems are going to replace humans. But that's never going to happen because of some of the things you just said. As there's always going to have to be either human oversight on what's happening, or there's a level of complexity, or where a customer doesn't want to be met with automation. Yeah. That's going to require the need for a human. So I think some of the fear and maybe the responsibility around automation or AI replacing humans, I don't think that's ever going to happen. There's always going to be a need for both. It's just what's the right balance, and we may see it swing. Sometimes you see it swing more to automation, and something happens, and it swings back more to a human. Yeah. I think we're always going to see that pendulum in this new world.
I think the last thing I'll say is that when we get asked once in a while to have AI oversee AI, isn't that what happened in Terminator? Isn't that what happened with one Meta or someone, where they made this crazy bot and they had to turn it off because it came up with its own language?
Yeah, that rings a bell. Yeah,
whatever it is. Like that stuff. We let's just be friends in this room and say we can't have the Terminator happen.
No.
All right. Anything else, guys?
No, I think this was really good conversation. We're gonna do some more. Subscribe. Click like, and we'll be back.
I was going to say, we'll be back.
Thanks. See ya. You're kind of turning into a prima donna.
Oh, you know what?
I need new mics.
I like
Bad?
it. You know what we need? We need a writer, like bands.
Yeah. Only green M&Ms.
Only green M&Ms. Just almonds.
Just almonds.
Better mics. And a new producer.
Can't work with this guy.
If we can't pick on Jake, we have to pick
we have to pick on each other.